So everybody, it's Robert Dunt from Art Top 10, and here I am today at the Edge to Edge exhibition at the Cello Factory in London, which I co-curated with Alexander Hinks here. And Alex, we just happened to be in front of this rather wonderful painting of yours. Just tell me a bit about it.
Well, the title's called Beyond, and so I guess it's representing this sort of distant world that I'm always trying to create. This one's not as scary as some of the others, but no, it's still quite sublime with sort of a movement, and it's this gaseous space that you can, maybe with this one you're not sucked into, but maybe you're falling down it.
So is this a distant world you'd prefer to live in than the real one?
Oh no. I find that I'm a painter, and so I'm always drawn to use the medium and have this contrast. And it just happens that it works out to look like this otherworldly galaxy, but then we've discussed too, it could be something microscopic. But.
So that's quite interesting. So you're actually saying almost. So I always thought you were purposely working to create another kind of galaxy. Are you saying almost the medium itself has defined that for you?
Yeah, it's just it turns out that my process of painting results in what could be interpreted as some other universe, but then also I'm quite interested in those aerial photography books.
Yeah.
So I think that's people get that sometimes. And but yeah, with this piece here, I did it in the build up to this show, but I wasn't actually. We planned this at such short notice, so I just finished this in time and thought it'd be good for this exhibition. It does. So it has this hard edge structure, which is set against the curves and fluidity of the forward paints.
Yeah.
And with this particular piece, I used effervescent colours, which is something I haven't done for a decade or so. Okay. So I had this drawer filled with all these really expensive golden paints, and I thought, now's the time to use them.
So what is effervescent colour? Is like a metallic?
A metallic, yeah, metallic. But then with the effervescence, it could be a blue, green, black.
Oh, okay.
And so. Using that, it has a slight metallic elements to some of the colours, but then also what I've done is I've mixed those effervescent colours with matte colours, which has then resulted in these vibrant colours that you don't usually come across.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting painting because it's got a very nice colour palette that's actually quite, as I think, it's not subdued, but it's vibrant but not glaring in a way.
It's some of the blues are quite cold. And then I've also dulled down a lot of the other colours, mixing them with slightly darker colours, and it all ties together quite nicely. So I've set this gold in the background against cream in the foreground, or blackish bluey purples against greys.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I love the way it comes together, this painting. I'm really interested about those I can't say it. Effervescent colours, but because it's strange, because you thought it could overwhelm a picture so easily. I'd have thought if you used those wrongly.
Oh, definitely.
Pulled it off very nicely.
Yeah. Again, I don't know quite at the start of the painting how it's going to quite work out, but I do spend hours mixing all the colours first.
Interesting.
And then I have a rough idea of which ones could work better together. But it's created in the moment.
So in a way, you mix up masses and masses of things, and then there's a crazy moment at the end where it all goes together.
And then I realised I haven't mixed enough paint, and I quickly mix more, and you've got to make sure it's perfectly mixed, so you don't want any lumps. But yeah, when I did this, I did the majority of the background in one session, and I ended up being up about 2 in the morning. And then also, as it's over 3 canvases, you have to watch the paint dry, and if something isn't connecting properly, then add more paints. And then also, so with the structure too, I set the fluidity within that as well. So then you have this push and pull between background and the structure, and also weave it in. And so it's quite nice to then have the structure beneath some of the flowing edges.
No, it's nice. I like the way the structure does flow back and forth between it.
And with the structure in the background, I then use the same colours as the background, so it's kind of like a camouflage hidden structure that you only really see if you've looked at the piece for a while. I've also abandoned the idea of scale and perspective with this piece. So usually the triangles or at the front would be bigger, and then you'd have some perspective with it disappearing off into the piece. When actually the triangles in the background here are bigger than the triangles in the foreground. But one thing that dawned on me is, as I am painting this other world, maybe our laws of physics don't apply.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, in a completely different, unknown place. Yeah. I actually really like. I really like the technique and the time to produce it. Creates a kind of story of galaxies in space with it. It's very like all those Ken Kiff films I did, where you're talking about how Ken Kiff was driven really by the paint and the material itself, and the stories. While his paintings are very poetic, I suppose you could say, or have stories within them. They're still driven by the paint. They're not driven by the story. And so I love it when the paint is driven by the paint, and yet a story comes out of it.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening here. Sort of, and each person has their own interpretation. And I think that's with art. It's got to be open-ended to sort of their people's own conclusions.
I find it really interesting, this one. As you say, that the triangles are more. The triangles on top are more a similar size. They don't have perspective.
Yeah.
The colours are more controlled perhaps, but in a strange way, by refining it down to its core elements, it's actually very striking painting, very effective.
Yeah, it makes sort of the cream triangle stand out a lot more. And I also I realised that there was something special happening with the background of this piece, and so I didn't want to overwhelm it with the structure. And but also with this show here, the idea of sort of exploring the possibilities of hard edge, and sort of like setting the hard edge against the curve sort of accentuates the hard edge. And so it's also, I've previously mentioned, sort of like the repetition alluding to the infinites.
Yeah.
And you've seen with my previous works how the structure actually has literally left the canvas.
Left the canvas, yeah. Well, this is brilliant. I think it's one of your best paintings. I really like it, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Bumbuckler.